Hello everyone and welcome to this week's board on opening theory. We will be beginning on a series of a 4 video series of videos talking about the Palcorner Cannon Opening. Now this will be the Palcorner Cannon Opening, and before I continue I would like to take the opportunity to thank Grandmaster Zhang and Master Wenqing for allowing me to use their work from their book to make this video. So for the first move, playing c2 equals to 4 would be known as the Palcorner Cannon. c8 equals to 6 is also known as the Palcorner Opening, but by default, in most books, c2 equals to 4 would be the move. Now, one of the main ideas behind this opening is that Red would choose to keep his opening intentions still unknown to Black, so that he could adopt the sandwich horse defense formation, the single horse defense formation, etc., or even the 5-6 cannons formation for attack. So this would keep Black guessing and would allow Red to have the element of surprise to his advantage. Now, usually the characteristics of such an opening is that it is very slow, slightly slower paced, but very precise, and would allow Red to control the situation better if played correctly. Now, for Black, when faced with the Palcorner Cannon Opening, the most traditional and perhaps the most popular opening or counter would be the central cannon. Now, there is something to know about moving which cannon to the central file. For example, usually the contralateral or the cannon on the opposite side of this red cannon is moved to the central file. If c8 equals to 5 were played, whereby both the ipsilateral cannon or the cannon in the same flank was moved to the central file, this is usually not advised because the presence of this Palcorner cannon would mean that Red would have the possibility to play c4 plus 5 for a cannon pin, and thus discourage Black from playing h2 plus 3 to develop this horse as a proper horse. So for example, after Black played c8 equals to 5, Red will protect the central pawn, and Red will usually adopt the sandwich horse formation, and this will result in a opening system whereby instead of the usual central cannon versus sandwich horse defense, it will be a reversal of colors, and Red would now actually play the sandwich horse as Red, and this would give it a first move initiative, and Black would often suffer. There will be more chances for Black to suffer from this situation. Now, the recommended move would be to play c2 equals to 5, whereby the possibility of a cannon pin will now be non-existent. So since again, Red will develop his left horse as a proper horse to protect the pawn. Black would speed up development of material on this flank, choosing to play r1 plus equals to 2 fully. Now in this board, Red will consolidate his defense by developing both horses as proper horses. And in this board, Black would play h8 plus 9 to the edge file for a very agile and versatile counter. Now this is one of the commonly used tactics in the central cannon versus sandwich horse defense opening system. Now with h8 plus 9, Black would also keep Red guessing as to whether he would play the 5-6 cannons, the 5-7 cannons, or develop his chariot for the pawn rank cannon, etc. Now if Black chose to play h8 plus 7, this horse will immediately become a obvious target for attack, because r1 plus 2 to protect the cannon, and Red will immediately focus his attack or take focus on this horse to attack. Now, because Red has the threat of the Palcorner Cannon here, black cannot offer a trade of chariots. By this, it is meant that, for example, usually black would play something like that in similar situations. Red would capture the pawn, threaten to capture. Now, because of the presence of this cannon, black cannot make this move to protect the horse. Otherwise, red will simply advance his cannon, and this would be a cannon pin. So that is what is meant by that is why h8 plus 7 is discouraged at this point in time. Okay, so red will usually continue r1 equals to 2, r9 equals to 8, and red will develop both chariots as foul chariots. And so would black. Now this would be the basic formation, the discussion in this board. Now when r1 equals to 2 is played, red would advance the cannon to the enemy pawn rank, threatening to capture the pawn for discovered check and trade chariots. Now this is one possible threat. Now, however, this is usually not a good idea, as will be seen later on, because although this would be a sort of an instinctual move, but there will be many ways for black to counter. So the first counter that is discussed in the board would be p3 plus 1. Another would be to play c8 plus 2, c8 plus 4. Now p3 plus 1 would be also an instinctual counter, whereby since red was prepared to capture the central pawn, black would simply advance the pawn and deny this cannon a cannon mount, so that it cannot capture the central pawn again. Now, a possibility would be to play c8 plus 4. Black will counter tit for tat. So let's say if this were played, red would usually attack the horse. Black would retreat his cannon, and red will push the pawn forward to apply a lot of pressure over here. So both colors will be now fighting for initiative, but red will have a slight advantage. Now back to the board. p3 plus 1 is played so that the cannon will now be unable to capture the central pawn. And faced with the red will usually attack with r2 plus 5 to move the chariot to the cross riverbank rank to attack. Now this would be the position of discussion for this board. So faced with this very aggressive move by red, there were two variations that were discussed for black. The first would be c8 equals to 7 to offer a trade of chariots, and the other would be p7 plus 1. Now, for the first variation, black would choose to offer a trade of chariots. Now, it would not be a good idea for red to trade chariots, or he would have wasted one move. So, usually, red will continue with his intentions and try to concentrate material on this flank to attack black's right flank. And at this time, it would be a good idea for black to dislodge his central cannon so that he could move one of the elephants to the central file to protect the horse for added protection. Now, it would not be a good idea for black to try to be aggressive and play r8 plus 8, because red would do likewise. He would slightly change his formation. Let's say black chose to attack this horse. Black would protect the horse in this manner. And although red would have lost an elephant, this black chariot will now be closed. It cannot move here, the horse will have it covered, and it cannot. Moving back to the third rank would not be a good idea either, because there will not be any good intersections for it to move. And if it moved to the bot corner, and capture the pawn, this would be another waste of a few moves. So black would have lost much in this situation, and although red would have lost an elephant, he would be compensated by a few moves in terms of initiative and tempo. So RA plus 8 would not be a good idea. Instead, it would be better for black to try to adjust his formation to deal with red's aggression. And since black tried to change his formation, red would do so likewise. Now, this would decrease the potential this would decrease the possibility or potential of black's counterattack from this flank. It will also it will also provide added support for this chariot on the cross-river bank rank, as will be seen later. So black would continue with e3 plus 5, protecting the horse and threatening to capture the chariot, forcing it to move away. The chariot would now play r7 equals to 4 to threaten the black cannon, which will be protected by the advisor. And red would now be prepared to charge the pawn across the river to try to gain some momentum. And black would retreat his cannon, threatening to play c7 equals to 6. Now, this would threaten to play c7 equals to 6, and this would threaten to capture the red chariot, which would not have any good places to move. But red can be aggressive and play r8 plus 1, because if black played c7 equals to 6, this would be a check. And after trading chariots, this chariot would be free to move to this file. So red's situation will now be improved. So this will be the first variation of first variation of c8 equals to 7, which would not be ideal for black. In the second variation, black would choose to sacrifice a pawn just to impede the red chariot from moving. So if this happened, red would play e7 plus 5. Now, capturing the pawn would not be a good idea because black would now take the opportunity to trade cannons. And because both the red pawns had not been moved, the horses would now be target for attack. And for example, if red accepted, the chariot will now be threatening to capture both horses and force one of the horses to the central position to be linked. Now this would significantly weaken red's formation, and black would become very dangerous. Usually red would not want to do so and choose to play c4 equals to 5, so that after trading material, red will get to link up his elephants for added defense. Now, of course, black will now target the red horse and forcing it to retreat. Now, r3 equals to 7 to offer a trade of material would not be viable because black would simply play h3 minus 1. So at this point in time, black would now threaten to capture the cannon because of the other horse and also the horse over here. So black would now gain material, and that is why r3 equals to 7 would not be a good idea. And black would have managed to force the horse back to the central position, and because the horse was now the central position, black would now play p5 plus 1 to seize the initiative. So this would be a very powerful attack, which would be very threatening. Now, red cannot play c8 equals to 5, for example, thinking that he could trade chariots, because black will capture the cannon and then capture this chariot. So black will have gained a piece in the process, and it would be very obvious that black would have the significant advantage in this situation. The horse would now be prepared to go for the elbow horse attack, etc., etc. So okay, so black would play e7 plus 5, r2 equals to 3 is not viable. And black would also, again choose to readjust his formation, and red would attempt a pseudo sacrifice to activate his right horse. Okay. Again, would r2 equals to 3 be a feasible? Would be r2 equals to 3 be feasible? The answer would be no, because black would play e3 plus 5, forcing the cannon to block, or the elephant would be threatening to capture the chariot. Now, if the chariot moved back, he would only congest and slow the development of this right horse. And after doing so, black could now start to counter attack by playing um, c6 plus 6. He could later move c8 equals to 7 to threaten, and there will be many other attacking options possible. So p3 plus 1 will be a pseudo sacrifice to try to activate the horse. Black would capture, red would threaten the pawn in this manner, and black would still again offer to advance a trade of cannons to alleviate some to achieve a state of confrontation whereby there will be chances for black to gain some advantage. After trading material, black would now consolidate his defense. Now remember, e3 plus 5 must be played, e7 plus 5 cannot be played, or the chariot. So if e7 plus 5 were played, red would gain material. So at this point in time, this would be an even situation which black can be satisfied with. Now, this was the first spot, and it would allow us a short glimpse into this opening system, which is quite popular. So let us go through the board again from the eyes of black. Okay, the Palcorner Cannon, and c2 equals to 5 will be the correct cannon to move. H8 plus 7, and black would adopt a versatile counter by playing h8 plus 9, whereby he could move the cannon, as 5-7 cannons, 5-6 cannons, etc. Black would threaten the cannon, black would protect it, and red would advance his cannon in this manner, threatening the central pawn. And this would be instinctual move to deny this from happening. And because p3 plus 1 was played, red would advance his chariot across the river to attack for this very aggressive move. At this point in time, there were two major variations. The first would be c8 equals to 7, and the second would be p7 plus 1. Now in c8 equals to 7, red would attack mercilessly and capture the pawn. Black would try to adjust his formation, and so would red. And although black would think that he was able to threaten the chariot, red would have this very nice move of c8 plus 1, because if he moved, red would immediately capture this elephant and deliver a check and place black in a predicament. Now if the king moved out, again the cannon in this file would mean that red could simply deliver a check or move a horse, etc., and black would be in all sorts of trouble. So in variation 2, p7 plus 1 was played to impede or deny the red chariot from getting a good position. Now red would solidify his defense, and black would also do likewise. A pseudo sacrifice to try to activate the horse. p7 plus 1. A trade of cannons, threatening to capture the horse. Black will capture the pawn and protect the horse. And black would now consolidate his defense, and at this point in time, there will not be many inherent obvious targets for attack for red, and black can be satisfied with the situation. So this will be a rather even situation which black can be very satisfied with. So I hope you have enjoyed this short video. If you like this, like the work I've been doing, please do subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up for the video. Thank you.